Radar warehouse and storage facility. Let's see what we're rolling out today. A nice big GMC SUV AT4, also known as a Yukon, closely related to the Chevrolet Tahoe Suburban family and the Cadillac Escalade. They share a lot of same parts anyway. I think one of the first things we want to know is the price, and I have that in the envelope, so let's take the sticker out and see what it says. Alright, let's take a look at the price tag. A lot of standard equipment for your 65 grand, but wait, there's more. But you know we can't live without the $9,145 AT4 Premium Plus package. Let's see what we get here. Sunroof, I don't need that. Differential, electronic limited slip, alright. Oh, air ride, adaptive suspension, that's pretty good. Alright, I'll let you read down there. You can see it on your screen. And they still want to charge us extra for second row heated bucket seats. Alright. But even more, and they're charging us $195 for this black paint. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Ooh, getting high, high, high. There you go. And here's where it's made, for those who care about that stuff. If you're a fan of General Motors SUVs, we also drove and did a video on the 2021 Cadillac XT5. We'll have a link for that video at the end of this video. Just go to the end, click and watch. We also did a video on the 2021 Chevrolet Trailblazer. That will be at the end of this video as well, for your viewing pleasure. As we do in all of our videos, there's two things we want to check right off the bat. First, let's see if we got a spare tire. Yeah, it's down there. If you get a flat, you're going to have to get dirty. It's better than no spare at all. And the second thing we want to do is take the headlights out in the dark and see how they work. Look pretty big. Alright, it's dark enough. Let's see what these lights do. These are pretty big uns. Here we have the low beams on the wall 100 feet away, blocked by a couple cars from some winos drinking in the parking lot. Aside from that, pretty good view. High beam, pretty good. And here's what the rear view camera looks like when it's dark outside. Many different options that don't mean much in the dark. We'll look at when we get in the daylight. And here we have the bright sunny fence 80 yards away with the building behind it 130 yards away. Pretty decent, though low beam. Overall, these are pretty good lights. Given the size of the bulbs, I would hope so. Let's see what's under the hood, and we get a GMC/Chevrolet 5.3 liter V8. A very nice motor. 355 horsepower, 33 pounds-feet of torque. Fuel economy with four-wheel drive, as we have here, 16 to 20 miles to the gallon. In the more expensive Yukon setup, you can have a 3-liter diesel or a giant 6.2 liter gasoline engine, putting out 420 horsepower. Those are in the Denali series, not this. There was a time a small V8 like this would be considered too weak to pull this 3-ton vehicle, but now they've gone from the 6-speed automatic transmission to the 10-speed. This overall acceleration ability has improved quite a bit. And the tow rating is 8,200 pounds for those interested. Let's take a look at the cabin, and we have the automatic steps that fold out so we can get in here a lot easier. Since I already mentioned the 10-speed automatic transmission, let's take a look at the control panel that operates it. In this vehicle we have a transmission shifter that operates by push-button mode, which I find to be totally superior to the old-fashioned stick shift. For example, here's a stick shift on another brand of vehicle I'm driving this week. If it gets in the way, you have to take your eyes off the road to put it in the right slot. If you put it in the wrong slot when you park, it can roll downhill. And let's see, what are the complaints do I have about this? Oh yeah, Every time you turn the vehicle off, you have to manually put it in park. This is just an old design. People like them because they're used to them, but really needs to go away. With this push button setup, you have many advantages. Number one, it goes into park automatically when you turn the vehicle off, instead of having to do it by hand and get the wrong gear. Number two, it doesn't take up any space at all. And number three, you don't have to take your eyes off the road to know what gear you're in, because it's all touch oriented. For park, you push; reverse, you put your finger in here; neutral, push; drive, you put your finger in there. So you can feel your way up and down without having to look. Now there is one disadvantage with this system that no one else has mentioned, and I will, if you're one of those females that has extra long fingernails, or a guy that has extra long fingernails, as the case may be. Sticking your finger in here might be an issue because there's not much room, and I think this is going to be a problem. I don't think the engineers figured that. So if you have long fingernails and watching this video and thinking about buying one, go to the dealer, stick your finger in here and see how it works for you. As far as the interior quality, one complaint you will often hear about when you're watching other YouTube videos or the automotive magazines that review these, and they complain about the cheap plastics used in the Chevy Suburbans, the GMC Yukons, and the like. And yes, the plastic is rather on the low quality side, no better than what you get in the less expensive Equinox. However, that being said, there are many advantages to this cabin. And my favorite items, we get real knobs and switches instead of having to scroll through an infotainment screen anytime you want to do something. Plus, they're extremely large, very simple to operate. This is what I prefer myself. And if we move down here, more simple knobs and buttons. One of the complaints I hear about occasionally is they're way down here where you can't see them while you're driving, but these are all controls you'll be operating before you get on the road, so it's not a valid gripe. And even though a lot of the buttons look alike, they're clearly marked, and we all went to school, we know how to read, so that's not an issue either. And there's a very nice gauge cluster. Well designed, easy to read, lots of useful information. And you get the information on that panel by operating the controls on the steering wheel, which once again are very large and simple to use. You get an extra large glove box. An interesting storage space here. I don't know what you would fit down there unless you had a bayonet. The info screen is large enough and pretty easy to use. A giant storage container between the two front seats. A lot of room in there. And 3-row seating. At the moment, the third rows are folded down and one of the second rows folded down, so you can see how much room you have if you need to haul something. A lot of room in here. Hard to believe they make a longer version, but they do. These sun visors are very well designed, do a great job keeping the sun out the side windows on a hot day. I mention this because there are a lot of vehicles that have poor designed sun visors that don't do this, amazingly. And for your front seat passenger to hang on to on those rugged off-road trips, we get 2 grab handles. And above the rearview mirror, we have lots of other controls that will be easy to use once you memorize where they're at and their function. Takes a bit of practice. Make sure you don't push the wrong button. If you watch other YouTube channels, one of their biggest complaints was this vehicle has way too many knobs and buttons. I counted 67 buttons and 9 knobs until I stopped. But I'd rather have too many knobs and buttons to have knobs and buttons rather than doing all the functions on an info screen, which I find distracting. But if you'd rather do all your functions on a large info screen, the Fords and Rams, they have plenty of that for you. Take your pick. The bottom line, yes, the interior plastics are pretty cheap on this vehicle, but that's the only complaint I have. As long as I have my knobs and buttons and lots of storage space, I'm not complaining. That's just me, maybe not you. Alright, enough show and tell. Let's take this out and do some driving. And yes, we will be taking this off-road. We got these giant Wrangler off-road tires, tow hooks, lots of ground clearance. And down here, an excellent four-wheel drive system. Four-wheel drive high and low for dirt. Two-wheel drive on the bottom left of the street. All-wheel drive on the upper left for wet roads. And down here you have a drive mode knob. Yeah, another knob. Normal, sport, off-road, tow haul. You're all set up for any situation. I definitely like this power steering system. Quick, responsive, good feel of feedback. Pretty nice for an electric unit. I don't think there's going to be any complaints. This self-adjusting suspension has a good reputation. Let's see what type of ride quality we get with these Wrangler off-road tires. As we do in all my videos, we'll be taking these speed humps around 20 miles per hour. Here comes number 1. A bit of bumping noise from these big tires, but the suspension is pretty smooth. I don't feel any impacts. That was number 2. Here comes number 3. Smooth, and now the nasty one. Hang on. Not too bad. I've got a nasty speed hump I rarely use, but let's see what happens on this particular truck. Felt it, but not much. If it can pass over that bump without a problem, that means we got a very good suspension setup. This new 10-speed automatic transmission is a real gem. Let's see how it works with this small V8 in a 0 to 60 time. I do have it in the sport mode. Pretty decent considering the weight. Dimension 3 tons. The vehicle stops just fine, but it's kind of a hard pedal push. You'll get used to it over time. As a rule, I don't like vehicles this long because they have a wide turning circle, making U-turns a real pain, as well as getting into a parking space. Doesn't seem to be an issue with this particular vehicle. The turning radius is extremely short. I was rather surprised. Getting into a parking space is a lot easier than other vehicles of the size I've used. The GM engineers certainly got that part right. The more I drive this vehicle, the more I like it, and so I'm doing a lot more driving in the next couple days. I think I'm going to like it even more. Guess we'll find out when the video is over. Let's take some time out and talk about this black paint job. I admit it looks good. Has that limousine appearance. Maybe the President of the United States will be in, or some CIA, FBI operative. But there are some disadvantages with the dark color if you live in a hot climate. And that is, this black paint absorbs heat like a magnet, and that goes straight into the cabin as well. And to show you, I have my temperature gun. Now, for the record, it is 114 degrees outside today. Yeah, a bit cooler than usual. And this white minivan's been parked out here all day. We'll take a reading off that. 123 degrees on the paint surface. Now let's do the Black Beauty. 175 on the side panels. And let's not forget the black interior. I've only had the air conditioning off for 4 minutes. Look at these seat temperatures. Even the carpeting on the floor here went up to 134 degrees after sitting for 4 or 5 minutes. Before that, I had the air conditioning on, had the interior nice and cool. Plus, if you take these off-road, they're easily scratched, almost impossible to buff out. If you live where the sun shines, black is a very poor choice. If you live in Alaska or Hawaii, maybe you'll get by. I know it looks good when it's nice and shiny, but you have been warned. For what it's worth, this is the best air conditioning system I've ever tested in an SUV. It blows out lots of cold air. Lots. Very, very good design. However, you think it's going to solve the problem of having a super hot interior because of the black leather? No, will not solve the problem. Helps. But if you want a cool interior, you need to go to a different color. That's just the way it is. We're going to take a quick highway trip, see what type of fuel economy readings we get. So don't go away. This is a very comfortable vehicle to drive on the highway. The adjustable suspension does a great job of absorbing all the impacts. It's reasonably quiet, which is unusual considering the large size of the vehicle. And this seat gives us a very high position to look at traffic all around. Just a matter of what the fuel economy is going to be and how fast it takes to run the tank dry. After driving this on the interstate for a while, I do have one complaint that I've noticed. Most speed limits around here are 65 to 75 miles per hour. It would be nice if there wasn't a blank hole between the 60 and 80 mile per hour markings. Nothing but little tick marks. I find this rather annoying. Not serious, just annoying. Here are the results of our 51-mile trip, and in all fairness, I was getting 21 mpg, cruising along at 75 miles per hour with the cruise control. But had to do a lot of passing, a lot of slow truckers in the way, and that dropped me down to 18.5. In spite of my lead foot, this is pretty close to the 20 mpg claim, so I think this is more than acceptable for a 3-ton rig like this. Now we're going to do some ranch patrol. We'll stop by the ranch house, get some supplies, and I know I need to fix the roof someday, but someone spent all the time doing a nice paint job for me. Can't complain about that. This suspension does a pretty good job of absorbing impacts on these nasty roads. The only disadvantage with this Yukon, it's a bit on the large side. So you gotta be careful squeezing these narrow roads. You don't want to scratch the paint off. We're going to be very careful, especially with this black paint, which is impossible to buff out. You get scratches, it just doesn't work. Another reason not to get black paint. I'm going to cut out all the 4x4 footage because with the rain we have coming in about an hour, it's been raining already, these roads are going to be flooded. We're going to have a lot of mud. And you don't want to be out in the mud in this area, you get stuck. So I'm going to wrap up this video and tell you what I think about this rig after a week of driving. Yes, I agree, the plastic materials used is just unacceptable for a $75,000 rig. But I'd rather have a cheap interior with lots of nice buttons and knobs than a fancy interior with one of those info screens that hardly ever works. It's impossible to fix, expensive to replace, and very distracting to use. Given the choice, I'll take the GMC/Chevy setup with all the buttons and knobs, even if there are a lot of them. And while I would prefer a Yukon with the 6.2-liter gasoline engine to get more power, this 5.3 is more than adequate. And Chevy's small block engine is still one of the best on the planet. Very reliable, durable, decent economy. No reason to complain unless you're doing a lot of towing. And who tows in these anyway? If you are, yeah, maybe go to the 6.2-liter. But I'm perfectly happy with this 5.3. And the 10-speed, which is really sweet. If I was going to buy one of these, though, the black paint would definitely not be an option. Zero chance of that. If you like it, hey, go ahead. Here's the video links of other rigs we've driven and did videos on. Just click and watch. And give me some money on that Patreon account because these vehicles suck up a lot of gas. And I'm poor.